Hey everyone, how's it going? Jazzhop the Healer here, and this video is going to be aimed more towards newer players to watching the MDI who are trying to understand Mythic Plus and this tournament scene a little bit better. I just saw enough comments in one of the live streams, I figured this would be a good thing to do. So we're going to go over some of the polls and some of the interesting concepts going on here, and where a lot of this time save is coming. How are they able to clear dungeons in 15 minutes? So, and especially at like 22, right? Like this isn't a 5, this is a plus 22. That's what, 450% more I don't have the math in front of me, but 450 something percent more damage and health, somewhere in that territory. Oh, so how do we do it so quick? First of all, we're in tournament realm, so gear is maxed out. Players have access to everything in the game, so they can make the perfect class race combinations with the perfect gear for every single instance, find a composition that works with their team, and end up playing it. And compositions aren't like an end-all thing, right? Like it's not like your favorite class isn't viable because you don't see them in the MDI. These are compositions to go as fast as humanly possible. If you're doing a live key, you're just trying to clear the key as efficiently as possible, then you don't need to do every time-saving strategy. And some of these polls require teams to be ultra coordinated, right? Everyone using their cooldowns at very specific points. It's very coordinated and choreographed so that they can survive some of these things. Because one of the meta compositions you'll see are protection warriors, which are amazing right now. They're super powerful, but they still explode when they get hit with magic damage. So you're going to see a lot of situations where they set up and try to protect the warrior from lots of incoming magic damage, and there's entire strategies employed to help keep them alive. And one of the biggest reasons compositions are the way they are is utility. If you're wondering why you see so many shadow priests, or in this video, feral druids, that's because they have access to Vampiric Embrace and Nature's Vigil respectively, essentially turning their single target damage into healing for other allies. This is the hardest season of World of Warcraft to ever heal in. It's brutal, and even at the top level it's challenging. So having players that can cover heals not only frees up the healer to do a little bit more damage and focus on what they need to be doing, but it also helps them survive certain mechanics so that healers can use cooldowns on certain places where they have to, and then they can have their teammates cover other mechanics that they might not have buttons up immediately for, or would have to otherwise use all of their mana. Another reason you'll see compositions like this one, Discipline Priest and Fire Mage are a match made in heaven, because you can PI the Fire Mage and they can do insane damage. In fact, in this poll, I'll probably rewind the video, editor me, the Fire Mage on the side of Monka gets 1 million damage per second at one point, which is out of this world, right? And that's only possible because of the composition. And the rest of the team is still doing crazy damage. So, okay, yeah, they're doing a ton of AoE damage, but one of the reasons to bring a Fire Mage is to help even out the health bars. This is something that's going to be done often and frequent, and I'll talk about more later, but because they can bring priority target damage, they blast one mob and set everything around them on fire. That allows them to be really efficient at taking out important enemy health bars. Death Knights, of course, are one of the best AoE classes in the game right now, so if for some reason you couldn't PI your Fire Mage, giving it to an Unholy DK is still going to do work for your team. Not to mention they bring an Anti-Magic Zone, which is a really strong cooldown that protects the team from magical effects. So having that kind of damage reduction on a DPS is just another piece of utility. One of the other major time-saving things that you'll see is they'll pull trash into a boss fight. Now, yes, it is super time efficient to kill the trash alongside the boss, because if you're targeting the boss and naturally cleaving down the enemies, essentially everything should die around the same time, and you save a ton of time having the trash in the boss fight where you don't lose any time on a boss. But if you've never heard of funneling before, funneling is to take classes that receive procs from like bleeds or dots or something like that, or depending on how many targets are in the area, and allowing them to push that damage onto one target. A great example of this, I have some footage for you here, is simply Devastation Evoker. If you use Fire Breath on a single target, yeah, you'll get procs for instant cast stronger hitting Living Flames, and that's a really nice damage boost. But in AoE, if you have to kill a single target but can set 5-6 things on fire, then you're just giving yourself more chances at more Living Flames. And this is even bigger on a class like Feral Druid, where the more bleeds they have ticking, the more chances they get at free bites, and bite hits quite hard. So that allows them to funnel those extra procs into a single target, which is why they're able to take out bosses so quickly. In fact, you're going to see, if you watch the run yourself, that Monka ends up taking 2 of the soldiers that they mind soothed and skipped at one point into the boss fight of Kairaka and Stormheart, simply to have more funnel. It does a ton of damage. It gets everything you ever wanted. It finishes out the percentage, but it's more damage efficient. If you can survive having more targets in a pull, then you will do better. So bolstering is the affix, and bolstering is terrifying because it emphasizes a concept that is super important that I mentioned earlier. If a target dies near another target, like enemies, I should say, they're going to make them stronger, bigger, with more health. And it does fall off after a little bit, and bosses can't be bolstered. The problem is that you really don't want a mob that was at 5% health to live an extra 20 seconds when they probably only should have lived 5 or 6 seconds. So killing all of the enemies relatively even in health bars means that you get very little bolstering and everything can die sort of together. You can also move the packs away from each other to prevent bolstering as well, which is another great method of dealing with it. But killing enemies evenly also is a huge time save. Everyone on my channel's heard me rant about this one before, but one of the most important things about priority target damage is that if an entire group of AoE pumpers ends up stuck in single target with a pack, you're wasting time because all these players are good at AoE, their single target isn't going to be as high. That's why there's funneling in boss fights. It's simply to more efficiently do more damage to more targets and the target you're trying to kill. But also, if they're all just stuck doing single target damage, they're not doing what they're good at. So by evening out the health bars, not only do you prevent bursting from becoming a problem, but you save a ridiculous amount of time. And if you watch the BM Hunter from, I want to say it was Empyrean, but I might have my names wrong right now. I think they were fighting direwolves in a Court of Stars. I covered it in one of my other MDI videos. The single target priority damage quite literally carries them through mistakes and problems that they have. It makes their run so unbelievably quick. So then I'm a healer main, and a lot of you know me for my healer content. Why discipline? Because if you've been watching this video the whole time, you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, PI is good, but like, doesn't preservation or resto shaman or even resto druid? Hell, I'll even tell you that I know Mistweaver does more damage than discipline. So why is discipline being picked here? And the answer is that discipline priest is A, good at priority target damage. B, they have things like shields that they can put on people, which can mitigate quite a bit of damage. So if the tank needs help with a defensive or something, pain sup and a shield is going to be an absolute godsend for them. But as long as the discipline priest can survive it, power word infusion goes on them and the target they cast it on. So not only are they going to still maintain their ramp, which is what makes them so strong, but they're going to be able to give another person essentially, I think it's 20 or 25% haste, a mini lust every 2 minutes. You take a fire mage that does priority target damage, that sets everything on fire around them so that their priority target damage is doing their AoE for them. They have combustion, which is going to give them criticals for what, 10 seconds of criticals? And now you're going to give them more casts in that window? Yeah, that damage well outweighs what a preservation evoker could ever do in a pull like that, right? Yeah, they might even double the discipline priest damage, but you saw that first pull, 1 million damage. Yeah, that's definitely worth bringing the discipline priest for if it enables that kind of pull. But also, that's why you'll see shadow priest show up too, because sometimes you want to be running a preservation evoker because you just need more throughput. You have less healing as damage, and you have some of those, you don't have as much utility in terms of providing damage for others. So you bring a shadow priest that can not only help with the healing, but can bring that PI for something like your unholy DK or your fire mage while maintaining the amount of heals that your team needs. It's a complicated situation, but if you can bring a disc and a disc is good enough for the job, generally speaking, you can run some crazy comps as long as discipline priest is running. And for my final point, something absolutely fascinating about time save, and this one is very viable in your live keys, but there was a mistake that happened to Monka. They ended up pulling Thunderhead in their day 1 key. There was no deaths in this run. It was ultra clean, but there's a few bolstering problems with the first boss. And of course, having to single target down Thunderhead sucks. That's just such a damage loss. How much of a damage loss was it? Or how much of a time loss was it? Well, they end up at 1545. I think you'll see the timer on screen right now on day 1. On day 2, they have a absolute blunder. They lose 4 players. The tank keeps the pull alive, and they're able to clear the pull And 4 deaths, I gotta walk it back. That's 20 extra seconds on the clock, plus whatever it took to get them back on their feet, and missing the cycle on the next dragon they were skipping. Right, that's a lot of time loss. And yet they beat the dungeon with 45 something less seconds on the clock. They finish it 15 minutes clean. That is amazing. All because they survived a pull, somebody saved the pull, they all died, but they skipped the massive time waste of Thunderhead. That's how big of a time waste Thunderhead was. They might have actually been better off to wipe on Thunderhead and skip, although that's all hindsight is 2020. But that kind of time save is crazy, and I think it's really interesting. MDI is complicated because you take all the factors of a Mythic Plus run. You remove the pug element, but you start adding in, hey, we need to go as fast as humanly possible. And all of a sudden, keys that sound like they should be easy turn into nightmare fuel, as the smallest things can go wrong. And it takes a ton of skill for these players to not only play their classes well and play their classes on the fly and cover mistakes and adapt quickly, but to do this coordinated as a group is some of the coolest stuff in gaming. And that's why I'm gonna keep covering MDI. I love tournament speedrunning, and I love Mythic Plus. So I hope you all enjoyed as much as I do, because I'm gonna keep talking about it. And if you're new to the scene, ask some questions down below. My community's pretty good about answering comments and questions that people have, especially when I don't know the answer. And I would love to help as many people get into this. It's so cool and it's so much fun. But until next time, have a good one, everyone.